Beacon Press Audio presents A Lamp Unto Yourself, a beginner's guide to Asian spiritual practices, from Advaita and Buddhism to yoga and Zen, by C. Pierce Salguero. This audiobook is narrated by Luke Anthony-Rey Oller, published by Beacon Press Audio, 2025. Preface. Ancient writings from India preserve a story about the death of one of the most influential spiritual masters of all time. This narrative was carried orally for centuries until it was written down in the 1st century BCE in an Indian language called Pali, in a scripture named the Discourse about the Great Emancipation, Mahaparinibbana Sutta. The text details the teachings, miracles, and other activities the Buddha performed in his final days. The Buddha had spent over 4 decades, from the time of his enlightenment at the age of 35 to the time of his death at 80, expounding his teachings to thousands of people. Yet, even as his illness was becoming progressively worse, and his body was beginning to fail, his faithful attendant Ananda asked the Buddha for some final words of wisdom. The Buddha replied that he had never held back anything from his disciples and had no final secret teaching to reveal. As he would soon no longer be there to provide guidance, he exhorted Ananda to stop relying on him for all the answers. Be a lamp unto yourself, he said, a refuge unto yourself. The master had laid out all of the teachings with clarity and precision. It was now up to each student to take up the initiative to put them into practice. As it is often the case with terms in ancient texts, there is some ambiguity about the Pali word, dipa. I am following the Chinese tradition, popular among many Western translators as well, to translate this term as lamp or light. The alternative meaning is island, and in my opinion, be an island unto yourself works just as well. This simple phrase has been deeply inspirational for many modern spiritual seekers. It invokes a radically different ethos than we normally expect from religious leaders, doesn't it? The Buddha's message is not that you should take refuge in scriptures, gods, institutions, or charismatic gurus. He does not ask you to place your faith in anything other than your own discrimination and due diligence. He had shared his own discoveries in as much detail as he could, but each of us has to experience the truth for ourselves. Those qualities of self-reliance, autonomy, and first-hand experience are features of what I call spiritual exploration, and that's what this book is about. Simply put, spiritual exploration is about empowering you rather than indoctrinating you. There are plenty of other books out there that will mold you into a faithful Buddhist, a good Hindu, a proper Taoist, or a serious yogi. Here, in contrast, we will be investigating what the practice of Asian spiritual traditions can offer us while always maintaining a non-committed stance. We will treat the entire range of Asian spiritual ideas and practices as a menu of options that all have their own advantages and disadvantages, and that may or may not resonate with different people. You will make up your own mind about what works for you. There are some concerns and potential pitfalls with this kind of piecemeal approach. You might wonder if it's even possible to practice ancient traditions when living in the hypermodern contemporary world. How can we be sure about the accuracy of our understanding as we learn about new traditions? What about cultural appropriation and other ethical issues? These thorny questions are immensely important, and I talk about them in detail in the final chapter of the book. If these concerns feel especially urgent or are preventing you from enjoying reading, then by all means, please feel free to skip ahead and read that chapter first. Despite these potential snags, however, my argument in this book is that it is entirely possible to customize a blend of practices that can be personally meaningful and truly transformative, while also being a good fit for your life and your own priorities. If that sounds like an approach you would be interested in, then you are most welcome to join me on this journey of exploration. What's the point of this journey? Perhaps you, like most spiritual explorers, are seeking something deeper, more fulfilling, more alive, more soulful than where you are now. In my experience, the vast majority of people who get interested in this topic are primarily seeking health and wholeness. Many are driven to start this journey because they are either suffering due to their immediate circumstances or else because they bear the scars of past traumas. Others may experience the less acute but persistent discomfort of ennui, a feeling of being limited or disillusioned by the way their lives have turned out. Still others feel fragmentation, like different parts of themselves are always at odds with one another. For me, it was alienation, like I was living from behind a glass bank teller window that prevented me from fully experiencing my life. I longed for more connection, more presence. Spirituality proposes to help us realize our own deepest being and to show us how we can embody that realization authentically in our lives. With such lofty promises, it's easy to get swept up in the hype. It's easy to project our fantasies onto spiritual teachers or to imagine that the particular tradition we are interested in is the one and only true path. But that is not the kind of spirituality that's on offer in this book. Here, I will never ask you to leave your own judgment behind, to take anything on blind faith, or to sacrifice your own values or sovereignty. I will never ask you to dim your own light. Instead, we will approach the whole gamut of Asian spirituality with level-headed objectivity and common sense, and we will always prioritize your own individual values, goals, and experiences. Does that sound like a useful approach? Is that the kind of spiritual exploration you'd like to embark on? If so, then grab your lamp and come along. Chapter 1. Preparing for the Journey. Have you ever seen those cartoons where the Western spiritual seeker has to climb to the peak of some faraway mountain in order to find a sagely master living in a cave to ask him the meaning of life? Well, that's not at all how it works anymore. I'm using the metaphor of a spiritual journey throughout this book, but let's face it, no one in the modern world needs to engage in an arduous trek to the Himalayas or some other remote region of the globe in order to learn about Asian spiritual traditions. A simple Google search pulls up an Everest-sized mountain of reading material that you can peruse without ever leaving your living room couch. The whole spectrum is readily available, from Advaita and Buddhism to yoga and Zen, and everything in between. Actually, these days, you don't even need to search for it to be bombarded with information on spirituality. It seems that at every turn, it's there in books, magazines, podcasts, workshops, and even conversations among friends or coworkers. The problem with learning about Asian spiritual traditions today isn't that information is hard to find. It's information overload. How Western people react to this information glut varies. Note that in this book, when I say Western people, I mean to refer to people of all races and backgrounds who have been raised primarily within the context of Western culture. While Westerners with Asian family backgrounds are likely to have absorbed a variety of cultural influences, most of us have not had any deep exposure to Asian traditions. Even fewer of us really get serious about exploring Asian spirituality, at best superficially engaging with memes and platitudes on social media, or maybe buying a Buddha statue for the mantle. On the other hand, there are the diehards, who become long-term adherents of a particular sect or devotees of a particular guru. They commit themselves wholeheartedly to a particular Asian tradition, and sometimes even pressure you to join them. But what if you find yourself somewhere in the middle? You feel ready to travel beyond the superficial level, but are not necessarily sure what the territory looks like. You're interested, but also a bit skeptical. You are not feeling ready to commit to living in an ashram or monastery, but feel a little curious about why someone might want to. You definitely want to investigate Asian spiritual traditions more deeply in order to get a clearer picture for yourself of what this world has to offer. What do you do if you are a curious yet uncommitted spiritual explorer? Where do you turn for reliable information in English? Where can you get a map of the territory that is well-informed but accessible, serious but not overly dogmatic? With yoga studios on every street corner, hundreds of mindfulness apps to choose from, and Dalai Lama memes and Buddha quotes, both real and fake, constantly streaming into your social media feeds, where do you even start making sense of it all? In this dense forest of information, how can you learn to navigate toward what's authentic and avoid the baloney? If that's a predicament you find yourself in, then I have good news. You are holding in your hands a guidebook that was written for explorers just like you. This book is going to cut through the noise and lay it all out for you. This is not just one more voice in an already crowded spiritual marketplace. Here, You've got a comprehensive map.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?